पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं तं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तन्न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
We continue with chapter 3 Karma Yoga, verses 11 and 12. The essence of Bhagavad Gita. The translation and commentary by Maharishi Ji. Devan bhavayata anena te devaha bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantaha shreyah param avapsyatha. Ishtan bhogani hiva devaha dasyante yajna bhavitaha taidattan apradaya ebhyah iha bhukte stena evasaha. And here is the English translation. Through yajna you sustain the gods, and those gods will sustain you. By sustaining one another, you will attain the highest good. I repeat again. Through yajna you sustain the gods, and those gods will sustain you. By sustaining one another, you will attain the highest good. Verse number 12. Satisfied by the yajna, the gods will certainly bestow the enjoyments you desire. But he who enjoys their gifts without offering to them is merely a thief. I repeat again. Satisfied by the yajna, the gods will certainly bestow the enjoyments you desire. But he who enjoys their gifts without offering to them is merely a thief. Now let's briefly review the verse number 10 where we left off. In the beginning, having created men along with yajna, the Lord of creation said, by this yajna shall you prosper, and this shall bring forth the fulfillment of desires. So here Bhagavan is saying that God is the source of all creation, and man's link with him is through pure transcendental consciousness, which is the absolute consciousness. Creation came out of this absolute level of life, and the Creator said it would be forever the source of all prosperity and advancement in life. And here yajna is defined as action which helps evolution, and it ultimately leads the man to the highest state of evolution, to realization of God. So every step of a man's evolution is connected with yajna, and yajna thus upholds life from its beginning to its ultimate goal. And this is what Bhagavan means when he says, having created men along with yajna. So the yajna has been created along with the men so that it furthers the evolution. Now we come to verse 11, and Bhagavan is saying, through yajna you sustain the gods, and those gods will sustain you. By sustaining one another, you will attain the highest good. This verse is explaining the mechanics of the vast influence which one's actions create throughout the universe. All the laws of nature on the level of the doer react to every action. Again, all the laws of nature react to every action. That means all the laws of nature react to every action performed by the doer. Here we see that the various types of yajna, which are expounded by the Vedas, connect the individual with the entire process of cosmic evolution. So yajna has various levels of influence, ranging from the grossest to the subtlest states of creation. But it is always pointing towards the ultimate goal of God consciousness. This yajna means, what it means is, it means that one can enjoy the favor of all the forces of nature engaged in the advancement of life, individual and cosmic. So the yajna is a process bringing the individual into harmony with the stream of evolution. Then we can further say that yajna is the means, it is the actual means to that complete success in life, which consists of all possible achievements in the world, together with freedom from bondage. So yajna, in fact, is a means to accomplish perfection of life. It brings the blessings of the powers which control and direct the evolution of the entire creation, wins the favor of Almighty Nature, and ultimately brings fulfillment in God consciousness. The gods or devas mentioned here are the deities presiding over the innumerable laws of nature, which are present everywhere throughout the relative life. They are the powers governing different impulses of intelligence and energy and working out the evolution of everything in creation. Now, this may be understood by an analogy. When you look at the human body, there are myriads of cells, and each of the myriad cells has its own level of life, energy, and intelligence. Together, these innumerable lives produce human life. So, a human being is like a god to all the small impulses of energy and intelligence in each of these cells, and each with its own form, tendencies, sphere of activity, and influence, working for the purpose of evolution. Again, a human being is like a god to all these small impulses of energy and intelligence, and each has its own form, tendencies, sphere of activity, and influence, and they are all working for the one purpose of evolution, one goal of evolution altogether. Likewise, the gods and the devas, who are the deities, they are presiding over the innumerable laws of nature, which are present everywhere throughout relative life in the whole of creation. Bhagavan wants us to create and maintain a mutual harmony with the higher powers of nature on the way to becoming one with the transcendental, eternal divine. He further wishes that by way of yajna, the act of coming to the transcendent, men should simultaneously please the world of gods. And this is possible when one gains the transcendental consciousness and it influences and supports the stream of evolution and thus wins the favor of the deities presiding over the laws of nature, the gods. So here again, one takes the sound which produces such an influence of harmony in creation and experience its subtle states until the mind transcends even the subtlest and gains the state of transcendental consciousness. Further, when through the practice of transcendental meditation, activity is realized as separate from the self, then all of life's activity is said to have been given over as an offering to the gods. So yajna is a sacrifice, it is an offering. So when the activity is realized as separate from the self, then all of life's activity is said to have been given over as an offering to the gods. And what does this mean? It means that activity continues in its sphere of relative life, over which the gods preside, while the self remains in the freedom of the Absolute. And this is the way to please all the gods through every activity at all times. And here a situation is created in which every activity automatically becomes a yajna. Now this is important to understand. This manner of offering actions to the gods does not imply surrender to them or coming under their subjugation. Here the self in this state becomes completely free from all the influences of relative life, including the gods. When Bhagavan is speaking about the highest good, he is saying that the ritualistic aspect of yajna produces effects in the relative field of life, and its highest attainment is heaven, which is the summit of the relative world, where life is free from suffering. And now with the technique of transcending through the process of yajna, on the other hand, leads the individual to transcendental bliss consciousness, the state of eternal freedom in life, and thence to God consciousness, which is the highest good of all, higher than the highest in the relative sphere of life. Ultimately, this is what Bhagavan means by saying, by sustaining one another. That means by you sustaining the gods through yajna and the gods sustaining you, you will attain the highest good. And Bhagavan is continuing, satisfied by the yajna, the gods will certainly bestow the enjoyments you desire. But he who enjoys their gifts without offering to them is merely a thief. Here we understand that yajna is an action, and the fruit of every action is the response of nature to that action, and is therefore nothing but the gift of the powers of nature, the gods. When Bhagavan is referring without offering to them, that means without foregoing possession in their favor, without performing the act of transferring ownership for them. Now, how is it possible to forego possession of everything that we gain in life? It is possible only by putting into effect the teaching of verse 48 of chapter 2 and realizing the self as separate from the field of activity. Now let's go over the verse 48. Here Bhagavan is saying in verse 48 of chapter 2, established in yoga, O winner of wealth, perform actions, having abandoned attachment and having become balanced in success and failure, for balance of mind is called yoga. So here one has realized the self as separate from the field of activity, and then when a man has become established in that state where he is aware that all things are separated from the self, he has in effect given over all things completely to nature, or to the powers of nature we call gods. So again, a man becomes established in that state where he is aware that all things are separate from the self, and he has in effect given over all things completely to nature, completely to the powers of nature, the gods. And in this way he has risen above the charge of theft made by the verse. So here the word theft is that when one is performing the action without offering to them, without foregoing the possession in their favor, and without transferring the ownership to the nature or the gods. It is further important to understand the prosperity and happiness that arise from the blessings of the gods gained by means of yajna should not cause a man to become engrossed in enjoyment to the extent of forgetting the source of his prosperity. Here, the source of all prosperity belongs to the Creator and to the deities presiding over the innumerable laws of nature. Bhagavan further says that he who undermines the higher forces in nature by possessing himself of the field of action which actually belongs to them acts like a thief. And why this is happening? This is because he has not realized his self as detached from activity. And anyone who has not gained fixity in being automatically remains involved with activity, and he assumes this authorship of action and obtains ownership of its fruit, which in reality belongs to the nature nature or to the gods, which are the powers of nature. And that is why such a man is called a thief, and a usurper of possessions belonging to others. So here it is very clear that everything belongs to the gods and they are blessing you, but you are assuming the authorship and you are obtaining the ownership of its fruit. Now, a thief commonly enjoys the wealth of other men, but makes no attempt to grow wealthier by his own efforts. So here is the warning that the Bhagavan gives. One should not be satisfied only with the growth of material prosperity, wisdom and creativity in a relative field of life, but should aspire to go beyond this and achieve oneness with the eternal life of absolute being in God consciousness. And this is how one becomes established at the level of life underlying all creation and automatically produces life-supporting influences for all the powers of nature and indeed for everything that exists throughout all the gross and subtle strata of creation. Here, finally, it is important to understand that one should not create a mood of offerings, and this will make a mockery of offering. The teaching of this discourse is a teaching of practical life. It is a discourse of the Yoga Shastra, the scripture of yoga, the science of divine union. Many seem to create a mood of offering, and then its truth is far removed from imagination or mood making. So again, the truth of this scripture of yoga is far removed from imagination or mood making. Unfortunately, owing to superficial interpretations current for many centuries, the essential teaching of this whole discourse has been greatly distorted, and society stands today surrounded by superstitions and lacking a proper sense of the values of life. So when this knowledge is clearly understood and one lives this basic teaching of the verse, then one is naturally performing yajna and one is naturally evolving to God consciousness. Here ends the essence of the verses 11 and 12, chapter 3, the Karma Yoga, the translation commentary given by Maharishi Ji. Let us understand this yajna in simpler words. Yajna means sacrificial actions dedicated to a higher ideal. So here you are continuously sacrificing something lower to gain the higher. You are sacrificing your self-centered interests and goals for the purpose of a higher cause, to know yourself and to gain the God consciousness. So here you are sacrificing your selfish desires to gain a higher cause of helping the whole community and society at large. And so this work, which is done selflessly, is the spirit of yajna. And so with this capacity to be able to sacrifice something lower to attain the higher, then the gods will support you and nourish you to attain this supreme goal. So by performing this yajna, it is important to understand you are nourishing the gods, and then the gods in turn are nourishing you. And so nourishing one another you will attain the supreme good. Here, the Vedic sages created a master plan in the Sanatana Dharma. They taught the human beings how to divinize everything in the world. They kept this connection with the Supreme even when one is engaged in all objects of desire and performing all kinds of actions. So everything performed and everything gained is done with the spirit of Yajna, always remembering the God. Then work becomes worship. So by divinizing one's activities and working with dedication towards one's goals, then one can reach the ultimate goal of realization. Now, for example, when one is thinking of money and wealth and success, one is thinking of Goddess Lakshmi. And so in all the activities pertaining to this field of gaining and accumulating wealth, and in all the transactions related to this business, then one is always thinking about Lakshmi. And in the same way, if one is pursuing knowledge, then one remembers Saraswati, Goddess Saraswati, who is the personification of knowledge, throughout the whole course of gaining this knowledge. Similarly, if one wants to remove the obstacles and one wants all auspiciousness, then automatically one starts thinking of Lord Ganesha. The most important thing here is to work always in the spirit of Yajna. So this spirit of Yajna is also seen differently based on one's gunas. The tamasic people in general can take freely from society without giving back anything to it. They merely keep continuing to consume without even the thought of producing anything. And naturally, on a practical level, such a person is called a thief, because he is only taking and he is not giving and he is not sharing and he is not contributing nor producing. So here is a very important aspect for living, that one should be grateful to the source of this benevolence and continue giving back whenever and whatever you can in the spirit of repaying. One should develop a higher awareness of everything that one is receiving from the nature, which includes the air you breathe, the water you drink, and from there you can go on and say that everything in the nature is given to you free. So here again we understand that the spirit of Yajna is to live in cooperation with each other, to bring harmony with each other in the society, and to help each other in the society. That means you are sacrificing some of your selfish and self-centered activities and rising to help everyone around and to do the highest good for all concerned. By performing this yajna, then you begin to understand that you are living actually in this loving and caring arms of the existence. And you will also relax and surrender to that existence, although the nature is not saying you surrender. The surrender to the existence, to the nature, comes naturally when you have the experience of the transcendental consciousness and your growing into the cosmic consciousness. When the self and the activity are separate, and when you are the self, then you have automatically surrendered to the nature and allow the nature to do what it has to do to give you the best possibilities and fulfill your desires. This real trust in nature and in the existence comes when one experiences the transcendental consciousness and when one realizes that one is separate from the activity. Now, on a practical level, it's important you do your transcendental meditation regularly and you transcend the relativity to experience the transcendent, which is the bliss consciousness or the Atma. So this is the highest yagya, that you are transcending the relative to know the absolute and to be the absolute. So you are moving from something which is ever changing to something which is never changing. You are moving from something which is constantly perishing and which is mortal to something which is immortal. You are moving from something which is limited to unlimited or infinite. You are moving from something limited intelligence to more cosmic intelligence. You are moving from personal love to universal love. You are moving from limited joy to unlimited joy or bliss. So then this is the highest yagya, that you are moving from something lower to something highest goal, which is the transcendental consciousness, and from there on to go into cosmic consciousness and then attain the God consciousness. So this should be the goal on the practical side, is that you do the transcendental meditation regularly and then you start helping the world and you helping others, whether it is your family or your associates, with the spirit of this yagya. And then this highest spirit is the principle of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means the whole world is my family. And you start helping people and you start enriching everyone. Why do you want to enrich others and why do you want to share and give to others? Is because you begin to understand that everyone is part of you and everyone is an extension of you. And this enriching should be done as a selfless sacrifice with an yajna bhava. And when you begin to live your life with this spirit of yajna, then all the gods are certainly satisfied and they bestow upon you the desired enjoyments of life. Now you are utilizing so many resources in the nature, like you are making use of the elements, the air, water, and also the trees. And you are taking so much, you are receiving so much from so many beings around you. So it is important to give back and to replace. Like if one tree is cut, then you plant 10 trees. And you make sure that you are not polluting the waters and the rivers. And if something you see that pollution, make sure, please develop that awareness to clean up those waters, to clean up the environment, and not to further the pollution. And if you don't live with this yagna spirit, and if you are not contributing to the society, and if you are not helping others, and if you are not continuously enriching everyone around you, then naturally you are stealing. It amounts to stealing. Now finally, if one does not develop this yagya spirit, and you are not able to share and enrich others, and you create a very selfish and self-centered patterns in you, then your offerings also bring the same result. So I end here, and we will continue this very important subject. Jai Gurudev, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu.
पितामह